Hi guys, our today's topic is pharmacology of laxatives and purgatives. Laxatives and purgatives are the drugs for constipation. So before going to drugs, we'll first briefly discuss the definition of constipation, the types of constipation and the causes of constipation. So an average person defecates about 3 times a week to 3 times a day. So a constipation by definition is a painful, incomplete or infrequent sense of defecation which occurs less than 3 times a week. But it is important to remember that it's not necessarily that less than 3 times a week, a person defecating less than 3 times a week is having constipation. But what is important to note is the consistency of stools. Along with less than 3 times a week, a person may have passing hard or small stools or straining. So a painful, incomplete and passing hard stools, these all factors make up the definition of constipation. And this constipation is a symptom, it's not a disease. It's a symptom of different diseases, and it's more common in females than in males. Now, the cause of constipation. There are a lot of causes, many causes, some of which are discussed here. Number one cause is age. It is more common in older patients than in young, but nowadays it is also in young because of the diet. That is, now the young people take a lot of fats and carbohydrates. The fast foods. So it's nowadays also common in young patients also. So diet factor is there, and then the sedentary lifestyle, lack of exercise is there. Drug induced constipation, for example calcium channel blockers cause constipation as their side effects. Then there's a bowel obstruction, which can be mechanical obstruction or functional obstruction. Spasm of the sigmoid colon can also cause constipation, and the dysfunction of myenteric plexus. GID is innervated by enteric nervous system, which has two components, submucosal plexus and the myenteric plexus. Submucosal plexus is responsible for the secretions and absorption of the GIT, whereas myenteric plexus is responsible for the motility. It innervates the muscles, so it's responsible for the muscle contraction, motility of the GIT. So that's the peristaltic movement of the intestine. So when there's a dysfunction of myenteric plexus, there will be less peristalsis, and so the constipation. The types of constipation, there are usually two main types of constipation: primary constipation and secondary constipation. Primary constipation is idiopathic, or it may be associated with the neurological factors or age, gender, improper diet or irregular bowel habits, whereas secondary is associated with any disease or medication. And this type of constipation is reversible when the disease is treated or when the drug is replaced by others. It is reversed, it is relieved. The diseases which are associated with this type of constipation are hypothyroidism, pheochromocytoma, and diabetic mellitus. Whereas medications which cause constipation are calcium channel blockers, which are antihypertensive, and then sedatives and narcotics such as benzodiazepines, morphines, anti-diarrheal drugs, opioids, parasympatholytics. These all drugs can cause constipation. Coming to our main topic, laxatives and purgatives. What are laxatives and what are purgatives? Now, laxatives cause evacuation of the feces by increasing the volume of feces, whereas purgatives does so by stimulating the peristalsis. So P for peristalsis, P for purgatives. Remember that. Purgatives are also called cathartics, whereas laxatives are called aperients. Laxatives have milder action and purgatives have stronger action. So many drugs at low dose can act as laxatives, whereas at high dose can act as purgatives. The classification of laxatives and purgatives. It's important to remember this. There are 6 main classes of laxatives: bulk laxatives, irritants and stimulants, saline and osmotic laxatives, stool softeners, lubricant laxatives, chloride channel activators. Now, the bulk laxatives include dietary fibers. These are the natural agents. The dietary fibers including bran, psyllium, methylcellulose, aspergilla, gum, pectin, and agar. Irritants and stimulants have further subdivided into 3 classes: anthraquinones, irritant oils, and diphenyl methanes. We will discuss one agent of each class in detail later on. Stay with us. Saline and osmotic laxatives are the solutes. Basically, the saline laxatives are the magnesium citrate, magnesium sulfate, milk of magnesia, sodium sulfate, sodium phosphate, whereas osmotic laxatives are lactulose, mannitol, sorbitol, and these agents can also act as osmotic laxatives. Then stool softeners, we have docusades, which are docusate sodium and docusate calcium. Lubricant laxatives have two agents in this class, mineral oil and glycerin suppositors, whereas chloride channel activators have only one agent, that is lubiprostone. So let's start with each class in detail. Bulk laxatives are the dietary fibers. Dietary fiber is an indigestible part of fruit and vegetables. We take it, we eat this fiber, but we cannot digest it. You can find this dietary fiber in whole wheat bread, vegetables, etc. There are two types of dietary fibers: soluble fibers and the insoluble fibers. Soluble fiber can dissolve in water and they form gels, whereas insoluble fiber cannot dissolve. So bulk laxatives are these soluble fibers. That is, here is their mechanism of action. They dissolve in water, they form gels. And then the dietary fiber bran, out of them, bran consists of 40% of the dietary fiber. So because of these are the natural substances, so they are the first line approach for the treatment and prevention, and the prolonged administration can relieve the symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome. They are also useful when straining has to be avoided. Now the mechanism of action, I've already told you that they form gels in the intestine, the gels causing the water retention and intestinal distension and thereby increasing the peristalsis. So the mechanism of action is very simple of the soluble dietary fibers, but it's somewhat different for the gum and pectin. That is, these fibers, these dietary fibers, they bind with the bile acids and they promote their excretion in the feces. So the bile, more the bile acids are excreted, the more the degradation of cholesterol in the liver occurs, and so there will be the decreased level of LDL, low density lipoprotein, so which causes the reduction in the risk of ischemic heart diseases. So this we should remember this. Gum and pectin are associated with the reduction of ischemic heart disease risk. They are the contraindication of bulk laxative. There are two contraindications: gut ulceration and immobile patients, because of their potential to cause intestinal obstruction. The second class, irritants and stimulants. There are three subclasses of them. The first is anthraquinones. Their mechanism of action is very simple. That is, they promote the secretion and accumulation of water and electrolytes into the lumen, which is enhanced by cyclic AMP and the prostaglandins, and so they cause the peristalsis. And they also cause peristalsis by acting on the myenteric plexus. And in combination with docusades, they are also useful in the treatment of opioid-induced constipation. This is their main use. You should remember this. And now the adverse effects. They can cause excess purgation, abdominal colicky pain, and the three main adverse effects they cause are the skin rashes and melanosis coli. Melanosis coli is a pigmentation. The colonic, there's a blackish brown pigmentation in the lamina propria of the colonic wall, which causes the melanosis coli. So there's a colonic atony and pigmentation, which we call it melanosis coli. There's another adverse effect called that is yellowish brown discoloration of urine, which is due to the excess anthrol, and at large doses they can also cause nephritis. Another class of irritant and stimulants is irritant oils. The agent is castor oil. Mechanism of action is that in large intestine it is broken down into two components, ricinoleic acid and glycerol. The main action of laxative action is of the this ricinoleic acid. This ricinoleic acid irritates the mucosa and stimulates the intestinal peristalsis, and so this action continues unless the evacuation is complete. So this castor oil does the complete evacuation, and the evacuation is so complete that it may take several days before the normal motion can occur, and it does purgation in just 3 to 4 hours. The adverse effects are the two main adverse effects. They cause the abdominal colic pain due to the morphological damage to the intestinal epithelium, and another adverse effect is the dehydration due to electrolyte imbalance. So there are two adverse effects of castor oil. The contraindication, it is contraindicated in pregnancy because it has an stimulatory effect on gravid uterus. So if it stimulates uterus, it can cause the miscarriage. So it should not be given to pregnant women. Another class of irritants and stimulants is of diphenylmethanes. The agent from the diphenylmethanes is bisacodyl. Its mechanism of action is same as that of the other stimulant laxatives, but its adverse effects. So we talk about this adverse effect. The main adverse effects are the allergic reactions, including skin rashes, Stevens-Johnson syndrome, osteomalacia, and protein losing enteropathy. Stevens-Johnson syndrome is the allergic reaction of the which causes skin and mucous membrane blisters, whereas osteomalacia is due to the decreased level of calcium. So it causes fluid and electrolyte deficit with the overdoses. So electrolyte deficit lead to the decreased calcium level, and then it causes osteomalacia. It can also cause hypokalemia, that is the decreased level of potassium on regular use. So its regular use is also contraindicated. It should not use for 10 consecutive days. It should be limited to less than 10 consecutive days. And it's it can also initiate the inflammatory response in the colon. The main contraindication is there are two contraindications of this drug: pregnancy and intestinal obstruction. It can also stimulate the gravid uterus, so it can cause the miscarriage. Now coming to another class, that is saline and osmotic laxatives. Their mechanism of action is very easy, very clear. That is, what they do is they act by osmosis. You all know the concept of osmosis. The more solute inside pulls the water inside, and then what it does, they hold the water inside by osmosis. That is, they increase the concentration of the solute inside than outside. You can see here that is, they increase the concentration of solutes inside the lumen of intestine than the outside. So this increased concentration inside of the lumen pulls the water from outside into the inside. So more the water goes into the intestine, the more the bowel distensions, and then it stimulates the intestinal activity. So the defecation occurs in just few hours. For magnesium ions, it is somewhat different, that they release cholecystokinin. Cholecystokinin is a hormone that stimulates the intestinal secretions and motility. So magnesium ions do their action by releasing the cholecystokinin. They are used mostly as a prophylaxis for surgical or radiological procedures for emptying the bowel, and they are also used to eliminate some intestinal parasites. This is important. You have to remember this. They are used to eliminate some intestinal parasites. The adverse effects, their toxicity can cause CNS depressions, particularly in the chronic renal failure, and their repeated use can cause fluid and electrolyte disturbance. They are contraindicated in the chronic renal failure because of in chronic renal failure patients, they cause the CNS depression. Now the osmotic laxatives, their mechanism of action is same as that of the saline laxatives. That is, obviously they do their action by osmosis. We are talking about this drug, this agent lactulose. This is a semi-synthetic disaccharide sugar. So, but it is neither hydrolyzed by GI enzymes nor absorbed. And the important thing about this agent is that it causes reduction in the blood ammonia in patients with portal hypertension and the hepatic encephalopathy. So it's favorable in these patients, and it is safe in pregnancy too. So you can give osmotic laxatives in pregnant women. The adverse effects and the contraindications are: adverse effects, they cause flatulence, intestinal cramps, abdominal discomfort, nausea, vomiting, and their excess dose can cause diarrhea, dehydration, hypokalemia, hypernatremia, and hypomagnesemia. That is, electrolyte disturbance, and then they also cause dental caries. They are contraindicated in diabetic patients and the persons requiring galactose-free diet. So you should not give lactulose in these patients. There are two more drug agents of this class, which sorbitol and mannitol, which act as an osmotic laxatives when they are administered rectally or orally. Stool softeners. The mechanism of action is clear from their the word stool softeners. They soften the feces. How they do it? They become emulsified with the stool, decrease the surface tension of fatty acids, allowing them to absorb water and become soft. So the net accumulation of water occurs in the intestine by altering the permeability. So the permeability is altered. They become emulsified with the stool. So within the intestinal lumen there is water, there is fat, there is lipids, and there is the stool. So there's a mixture of water, lipids, and the fecal matter, which causes which becomes easier for the feces to eliminate. They are used as a prophylactic, and their adverse effects are usually they interfere with the absorption of fat soluble vitamins, because they themselves emulsify and the fatty stools, so they interfere with the absorption of other fat soluble vitamins, calcium and phosphates, and if they are absorbed into the lungs, they can cause lipid pneumonia. So they are another causes adverse effects are with their prolonged use, they can cause anal polyp or the pruritus ani. Pruritus ani is the itching of the anal region. They are contraindicated for the concomitant use of mineral oil is contraindicated with them because of the potential to cause lipid pneumonia, because if they absorb the mineral oil, they can cause lipid pneumonia. Lubricant laxatives, the mechanism of action from the word lubricant is clear, that is, they lubricate the passage of hard feces. How? There are two agents of this class, glycerin and the mineral oil. Glycerin lubricate the passage of feces by osmotic effect, whereas mineral oil do so by coating them. Now, glycerin suppositories are administered rectally because it stimulates rectal contractions, whereas mineral oil is administered orally in upright position to avoid aspiration and the potential for lipid pneumonia. So here is the route of administration and the reason why it is given rectally and why it is given orally. Glycerin suppositories produce colonic evacuation in 30 minutes. The adverse effects are mainly, the main adverse effect is the lipid pneumonia, which is associated with the mineral oil, and other adverse effects include deficiency of fat soluble vitamins with the prolonged use, and the irritation in the anal region if the leakage of oil occurs through the anal sphincter, and if the small amount of these laxatives pass into the intestinal mucosa, they can elicit foreign body reaction. Now the last category is the chloride channel activators. It is only one agent, lubiprostone. The mechanism of action is that they simply activate the chloride channels, and the chloride channels are activated, so there is a fluid secretions into the intestinal lumen, which softens the stool. So the more fluid in the lumen softens the stool, increases the intestinal motility and ease the passage of stools. They are used in two main conditions. Number one is the irritable bowel syndrome, and other is the chronic idiopathic constipation. Because the tolerance does not occur, so we can give this agent in the chronic conditions. Now, the overall therapeutic uses of laxatives and purgatives, they are used in bedridden patients, for example, MI, stroke, or after surgery when the bowel movements are sluggish. So, for preventing constipation, we use bulk laxatives. To avoid straining at stool, we also use bulk laxatives because this is the conditions such as hernias, piles, anal fissures, and cardiovascular diseases, pregnancy. We give bulk laxatives. To prepare bowel for the surgical or radiological procedures, we give saline purgatives, bisacodyl or senna. After certain worm infestations, we give saline purgatives, and for food or drug poisoning, we give saline purgatives. So these are the general therapeutic uses of laxatives. Now, there is laxatives contraindicated in some conditions. Laxatives are contraindicated in some conditions. There are three main conditions in which laxatives are contraindicated: undiagnosed abdominal pain, organic constipation, and secondary constipation. Organic constipation is such as intestinal strictures, stenosis, or obstruction. Whereas secondary constipation, I've already told you that this constipation is relieved when the disease is treated or when the drug is replaced by other drugs. So you don't have to give laxatives in secondary constipation. Treat the disease. Now, some people have become obsessed and habitual of using purgatives casually. So by the time colon fills up, they get convicted. They feel like they are constipated, and they start taking drugs regularly, which can cause a lot of problems, a lot of adverse effects. The dangers of purgative abuse are mainly fluid and electrolyte disturbance, especially hypokalemia. The loss of the decreased level of potassium can cause cardiovascular problems. This purgative abuse can cause steatorrhea, malabsorption syndrome, protein losing enteropathy, spastic or atonic colitis, rupture of the inflamed appendicitis. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Stay connected with us.